Poveglia, a tiny island between Venice and Lido that dates back in history to 421. According to records, it was populated until approximately 1379, and then in 1776 was home to many of those who suffered what is known as the Black Plague. Active throughout the time period of the Black Death, it is said to host the remains of over 160,000 bodies buried throughout the island. While the exact number of deaths from the Black Plague is not entirely known, what we do know for certain is that between 1793 and 1814, the island was a quarantine zone for the Black Death, which meant that anyone coming into Venice by ship would have had to stop here first and possibly never leave the island altogether. In 1922, the island inhabited its own insane asylum and later became a nursing home until it was finally closed in 1968. On the island of Poveglia remains a cabana, a church, a hospital, an asylum, a bell tower, and housing and administrative staff can all still be found. But other than a clump of abandoned old buildings left to ruin, you may not find much else. While the iconic bell tower still stands as a landmark of the island itself, there are a few stories and rumors surrounding it. It is said that while Poveglia was being used as an asylum, a mad doctor who was said to be corrupt and otherwise known as the Butcher of Poveglia tortured his patients and eventually went mad with guilt and jumped from the tower to his death. Although this seems to be more folklore without anything concrete to back it up. The Lazaretto Vecchio was the original building used near the island of Poveglia as the main hub where travelers coming into Venice would stop and be held for sanitation. It first opened in 1403 near the island of Poveglia. Here, many people waited for 40 days before being given a clean bill of health. Many never made it the full 40 days and were burned and buried in unmarked graves throughout the island of Poveglia and surrounding locations. Venice, due to its strict laws of sanitation, was extremely lucky. It was more of a "it could have been worse" situation. Venice had been plagued throughout history well over 20 times and lost approximately 50,000 souls on the mainland, which is why it only made sense to open their sanitation operations. Throughout the many times that Venice had to endure the plague, it was impossible to place all the bodies throughout, so it's plausible that they did in fact use the island to bury their dead. Let's talk a bit more about the asylum built on the island in 1922. It's almost as if the government has tried to expunge the details of this place from history. However, people who have explored the island and tried to figure out its history said that yes, the asylum definitely existed. Why? Because the sign still exists on the old abandoned buildings. Along with the fact that there's a little tiny chapel built on the island which would only suggest that the people who inhabited the island were not allowed to leave. There have been many attempts made at restoring the island and its buildings, most recently a bid placed to purchase the island by a man who wanted to build an extravagant hotel and use it for tourism, but unfortunately all those plans have fallen apart as the buildings do over time. With all its grotesque history, you would have to imagine this has to be the most haunted place in the world, and I imagine spending a night on this abandoned island knowing that 50% of the soil throughout the island is likely made up of the bones of the deceased would creep just about anyone out. So the question is, at this point, is the island of Poveglia haunted? Okay guys, so now that we've got the history of Poveglia out of the way, now it's time to really figure out, is the place haunted or not? To tell you guys the truth, this is something on my bucket list, somewhere I definitely want to go in the future, so you'll have to stick around on this channel and my exploring channel. I'll put the links to that down below, so that way you guys can follow there and watch me eventually go to the haunted island of Poveglia. I would definitely love to stay in Poveglia overnight at least once, just to find out if the place really is haunted or not. Now let me ask you guys a question. Is this a place where you guys would even spend an hour on? Knowing the fact that there's 160,000 dead bodies buried on this island, would you guys actually go to it? Now, a lot of explorers have gone to this island. We've seen explorers from the Ghost Adventures series. They've gone there, they've experienced a ton of paranormal activity over there, but it seems to me almost like they have paranormal activity happen everywhere. But even still, whether it's just for entertainment, it was some fantastic footage, and you'd have to check those guys out.
We've
Whoa.
Did you hear that?
Did you hear that?
Yes.
There was another story around 2016 back when they were filming footage for The Black Doctor, which they filmed on the actual island itself, where a group of explorers from Colorado went on the island and basically had tried to stay overnight and ended up more or less calling for help because they were so spooked out by the place, and they were very lucky that a bunch of, I guess somebody must have heard them and the firefighters went and rescued them. Nobody knows for sure what it is that they saw or what it is that they've experienced, but it was pretty obvious that these people were visibly shaken by what it is that they experienced on Poveglia Island. On a side note, the other explorers who've gone recently, we've had Exploring with Josh and Yes Theory. Definitely go and check both of those channels out. They are amazing. I pretty much watch both of them religiously. Now, both of them kind of appear to have different sort of experiences on the island. We know that Exploring with Josh, when he goes to places, he doesn't really have a strong belief in the paranormal side of things. He usually just looks at unusual places or abandoned places. So it didn't really seem in his video that there was anything really paranormal going on, maybe because his expectations just weren't there of it. But when it came to Yes Theory, they seemed a little bit more susceptible to it, I guess you could say. Maybe they believe in it a little bit more, and it kind of seemed to me more or less like on their experiences that something might have been around them, whether it was malignant, maybe it was just, you know, some spirits kind of lingering around. I don't know, it kind of seemed to me like they almost felt like something was there. And for myself, I'd love again to go and experience it. I probably will go to Italy within the next year or two, so definitely stick around for that. We're gonna go check out some spooky haunted places as well as weird, unusual, and just do a trip throughout Italy. It's been years since I've gone, so definitely need to check that out. Now, getting to the island itself is not exactly easy. It is forbidden. It is technically against the law. In order to get approval to go to the island, there's a very lengthy process, a very lengthy application process that you'd have to go through in order to get approval from the government to go and visit Poveglia itself. But that doesn't stop, obviously, a lot of thrill seekers from renting a boat or renting a taxi, paying somebody about 200 euros, and they'll take you to and from the island itself for a few hours. It's pretty well known that most of the residents of Venice have fears of the island. They don't like to go there. They don't even really like to talk about it.
And nobody wants to spend the night here, of course.
They don't like to talk about the history about it. I guess it just scares them a little too much.
Apparently every person that's ever been on the island absolutely never wants to go back. So if that says anything.
But again, of course, that doesn't stop people. That would not stop me from going there. I would definitely go and experience it and record it for you guys and show you guys exactly what it is that we find on the island. One thing visitors report experiencing is the sensation of being watched. Others have been reported as to being pushed or scratched.
Oh gosh.
It just did it.
Same thing.
Or even literally attacked just by being there, by some entity.
Do you feel kind of like your equilibrium's thrown off?
What's that?
Kind of sick? Do you feel like your equilibrium's thrown off?
I think the scariest thing is that when you feel like you're being watched. I know when it comes to paranormal, I've experienced that myself. I feel like something is off in the distance, looking at us, watching us, and you can kind of just feel that that presence is there. Some entities have been said to push visitors into walls or chase them down corridors. Can you guys just imagine literally hearing something coming at you and you're just being chased down a hallway of this abandoned island that, like, you're stuck there by yourself, right? Like, that is insane. A lot of psychics who've gone to Poveglia claim that they feel a sort of malignant presence, which in other words basically says that angry spirits, I guess, which would make sense since the place used to have an asylum, and there was a lot of people who were supposedly tortured there by obviously the Mad Doctor and other scientists or whoever it was that was working at these places. And I would imagine that a lot of these spirits over the years would be really pissed off by what it is that happened to them. The fact that they were tortured, that they had weird experiments performed on them, and all sorts of crazy stuff. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of the paranormal investigators and psychics who've gone to Poveglia said that based on what they felt there or what presence they know exists there, that they will never ever return, which is absolutely insane. People have also claimed that if on a very quiet night, that if you listen very, very closely, that you can actually hear supposedly either the Mad Doctor or some other spirit on the island. You can hear them actually ringing the bell at night. And for now, this is where we're going to end this video off. If you have any suggestions on places that you'd like me to either go in the future or do a small little documentary on now, please let me know those in the comments below. Other than that, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that way you know when I make new videos. Otherwise, this is where I'm ending this off, and I just wanted to say thank you guys for watching, and I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.